Welcome to the final chapter for international management. And this chapter is about, I guess, the most important part, which is the human resources, selecting and, making sure that the right person is there on the job, right? And as you know, I like to go beyond the textbook and give you something that you could actually use in your real life. So because you can already read what's on the PowerPoints and the chapter. So I'm going to go beyond this to help you understand, what to do, how to do these things. So let's do a quick recap. I mean, I mentioned this in the first class is, let's see, what is strategy? Okay. So you are at point A, right? And then you go to point B. So point A is current situation where you are. SCS is current situation. DS is desired situation. So the current situation could be anything like, company is not making money, the company wants to expand, whatever it is. So these are all different scenarios. And so that is point A, that is where you are. And point B is where you want to be, right? Increase sales, go overseas, increase market share, whatever it is. And how you go from point A to point B, this arrow, top of this arrow, we can call it as strategy, okay? So if you recall, the bottom of the arrow is leadership, the person that actually takes you from point A to point B. So if you're looking at this, all these things are important, the analysis about where you are, where you want to go, how you're going to go there. And the most important part is who is going to take you there. So the leader, the position of leader is very important, okay? So now this chapter doesn't talk too much about this, but I want you to keep this in mind. Although it does say this, but the second part, which is that the chapter does talk about, and then there are various surveys, they say that the international assignment, meaning you take a person from, let's say, US, and you have your subsidiary or factories or whatever you want to call it, branch offices in, let's say, China. So the person in the US goes to the place in China, the subsidiary or the branch office in China. Now, these kind of assignments, there are lots of studies that they say if anywhere from 40 to 70% of these assignments fail. And there are lots of reasons for that. Now, one of the way you could actually make that process a lot easier, a lot simpler is, first of all, go through this model. Desired situation, why is the company going, or why is the company sending the person over there? And even before that, why is the company there in China in the first place? So if it is there in China to reduce labor cost, so then you should send somebody that is actually good at controlling labor cost, making sure the operations are efficient. If, let's say, the goal is to increase market share in China, then you should send a person who is good at increasing market share so he can work with the people over there in China to improve the market share. So that is what is, I believe, a little bit lacking in the discussion in this chapter is why are you sending the person overseas, okay? But depending upon that, you need to look at the capabilities of the person. So if you send the right person, there is no guarantee that it will succeed, but the chances are going up that, the operation would be successful, okay? So, so we'll look into different things in this chapter, basically selecting the people that you're going to be sending over there. So let's look at some terminologies for this. By the way, the password for this is quiz for chapter 14 is 4 letters. And the first one is G. G as in girl, G as in grape, G as in Germany. So capital G is the first letter. Okay, let me make this a little smaller over here. By the way, that is also important. You know, whatever you do in life, you have to first find out why you're doing that. And this is an interesting thing that, you know, I'm doing professional plan with you guys, and one of the things that has come up and that comes up quite a bit is many of you want to make lots of money. That is an awesome thing, you know, want to be really successful. But here is something that is really interesting. There is actually a trick to making a lot of money. And then we'll discuss that in a little bit as we go through. It's not part of the chapter, it is the ginger skill. Okay, so stick around and I'll tell you more about that. By the way, the second letter is R. R as in Roger, R as in Robert, R as in rabbit. So it is small r. For some reason it is showing up. So it is R, okay, small r. So HR, human resources, essential, as I showed you, you know, you need people to make things work. If you look at inside the corporation, what you have is tangible assets, meaning the company's, you know, factories, computers, trademarks, patents, and all of that. That is tangible assets, buildings, warehouses, all of that is tangible assets, okay? So that is one type of asset. And the other is the intangible asset, which is what is inside people's brain, okay? So you're thinking, are people tangible or intangible? Tangible is something you can touch and feel, okay? Intangible is, you know, what's inside people's brain. So are people tangible or intangible assets? So people are intangible because try touching and feeling people, you'll get sued. Again, the important thing is, what is inside people's brain is what is important. So that is the intangible asset, okay? Plus the networks you have, the relationships you have with the vendors, with clients and all that, that is all intangible assets, okay? So yes, there are tangible and intangible assets. It's very easy for another company to copy the tangible assets, meaning, you know, have similar buildings, similar warehouses, similar computer systems and things like that. But it is very difficult for companies to copy the other aspect, which is, you know, the information that people have in their mind, their brains, the top researchers, top scientists, top managers that are there in the company, okay? So intangible assets, and again, as more and more economies are becoming more and more advanced, meaning there is more and more dependence on data and information, so the intangible assets are becoming more and more important. I don't know, this was a quote by Infosys, that's a big computer company in India, and he said that the most valuable asset in my company leaves the front door, walks out the front door at 5 p.m. and there's nothing I can do about it, and I don't even know if it's coming back. So he was obviously referring to the computer programmers that work for his company. So what's inside people's brain is extremely important. That, as I said, so HR is key to having a productive workplace and making sure the company is efficient. And, you know, it's important to get the perspective from the employee's point of view and tailor the assignments based on the individual's capabilities and the desires. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to tell you what beyond what is in the textbook. So I'm quickly going through this. And as I mentioned, I like to, you know, uncover a few key points rather than going through everything, because most of you can, I mean, all of you can read it. And as I mentioned, you know, depending upon what, you know, these projects are considered failures. By the way, we'll look at these different terms. A 3-year assignment could easily cost more than $1 million, okay? So these are different types of people that are going to be working in an international arena. Home country nationals, also called as expats, okay, expatriates, which means that these are the people or the managers that actually are working in the US. So let's just say, for the sake of example, let's say US and China, okay? So So the manager from the US goes and starts working in China. So again, he's working for the same company. So let's just call this, let's just pick a big company. Let us just say that this is, let's just make it simple, IBM, right? So a manager from US goes and start working at the IBM office in China, okay? So this is called expat. So the person from US office is working in China office, that is expat. Now impat is the reverse. So a manager, local manager, a Chinese manager comes to US and starts working over here. Okay. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning, you have to look at what is the goal of the company. So if the goal of the company is to transfer technology from US to, let's say, China, so it would actually make a lot of sense if you get the engineers and the managers in China to come to US and they learn over there, because the goal is technology transfer, right? And it would be cheaper too, versus sending the manager from US to China, okay? So this is called INPATs, INPAT, INPATs. And there is a term called transpatriates, which is individuals that just hop from one country to other country. It's not mentioned in the textbook, but just letting you know. Global nomads is also another term used for them. And then there is a term called third country nationals, which is people that are not from either, like in this case, US or China. They're from a third country. It could be Korea. So they do understand sometimes, or many times, understand the language, understand the culture. So they could be a good bridge between them. And then, of course, you can bring in temporary contingent employees. Okay. So home country expats, again, as I mentioned, these things can be a little bit expensive, and or these type of people managers, and that's why there is a trend going away from that. But again, each of these individuals are playing a role, like expats, inpats, third country nationals. So you have to understand who has an advantage in what situation, and if you match it, it's very likely that I'm not going to say 100% successful. Sorry, there's something itching on my nose, but yeah. So depends upon the situation. If you match the right person, then you're going to get better results. Then the host country national. Host country is, by the way, where you are going, which is, in this case, as I gave you the example, it would be China, US and China. So in some of the countries, like Sony, is also trying to do this approach where they're sending managers, from, so Sony is, as you know, it's a Japanese country, is trying the host country approach in the US. So if you look at that, so Japan is the home country and the host country is US. So they're sending, guess what, people from the host country, which is US in this case, to Japan. Because they realize that it's important to understand both sides of the equation to be successful. And we will later on, we'll look at different types of approaches by the company too. Third country nationals, as I mentioned, these are not from either the country, but they understand typically the environment of the host country. So in the case that I gave you first, US and China, so somebody from Korea, South Korea would be the third country national. And these are typically cheaper than expats. And then there is subcontracting and outsourcing, meaning you hire a third party to take care of those things. And that is also a possibility in this globalized world. Okay, and then there is different various selection criteria as to, should we have an interview? Should we have a test? How do you figure out who is the right person for the job? And typically the person that has been doing the job in the US and there is similar thing going on, that's the type of person that is sent. But again, as I said, overall, you have to look at the big picture. What is important? What is the goal of the company? If the goal is to cut cost, you got to send somebody who has done that in the US or who is good at that to achieve that goal. Okay. And the international operations are, as we've been looking at all these chapters, the biggest challenge is the adjustment to the culture. Um, Huge differences in the culture could also make it challenging. And then the age, experience, educational level of the manager you're sending over there, the language training, how enthusiastic the person is about learning language. If you understand the language, you actually have a much better understanding of what's going on in the culture. And the more you make the effort, the more the locals um, look at that, and they may want, they are more sympathetic, or they open up more if you show the willingness to learn the local language and the local customs. And the motivations for foreign assignments, it could range from like you want to explore some different culture, to maybe you want to increase your compensation because you go overseas. Guess what, you get lots of perks. Plus there's typically a salary increase involved. And then the spouses and the dependents, that also can make make the situation challenging, or it can make the situation better. Because let's say if the person has his or family back in the US, and they're overseas, and they can get to see their family members only like once every 3-4 months or 6 months, that may cause a bit of strain on the family ties, marriage, things like that. So if the spouse and the kids are supporting and they are there, they get well adjusted, that actually could boost the performance of the manager. And plus, if the company actually provides those kind of support, to help the dependent, and as well as the kids, to the dependent spouse, as well as the kids, to get adjusted, pay for their cultural training, education, so on and so forth, that could also help. And look at this. This is kind of the statistics. As you probably guessed, not many women go overseas. Again, that has a lot to do with, the expectations that are there of women. It's very likely that when a man goes overseas, the wife would accompany. But if a woman is going, is that also the case where the man would accompany as well? So there are those complications as well. And this is the age group. And most of them are married. Most of them, more than half of them, have kids. And 80% spouses were there. And so again, nearly half the spouses were employed before an assignment, but not during it. So this also could put pressure. So if the MNC, multinational corporation, can figure out a way to give the spouse, and even if the spouse gets a job, that may not be to their liking. So that also puts a strain on the relationship and the productivity of the employee. And then, human resource selection process. So they are looking at lots of different ways. By the way, the third letter is number, which is number 0. 0, that is 0, okay? That is the third password. And also I told you about, the success factors. And as I've been talking to many of you, what I found out is most of you think that hard work is important. Yeah, it is important. Connections is important. And, being flexible, that's all is important. And here's one word that I will give you that is actually really important if you ever want to make tons of money. And that word is scalability. What I mean by that is, let's say, you're super smart, super intelligent, and you charge $1,000 an hour. Okay, you're the super duper accountant, super duper attorney, whatever it is. You're charging $1,000 an hour. Okay, cool. But guess what? There is a limit on how many hours you can work during a day. 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours. You can never become a billionaire by charging $1,000 an hour. But guess what? If you create a product in, it's let's say it's some kind of a training program. It's some kind of a program to help people manage their finances better, or something for them to become more productive, more efficient, whatever it is. You have that, you create that program, and let's say you sell it online. Guess what? You're making money even when you're sleeping. So if you're selling that program for, let's say, $100, okay, guess what? How many of those programs you have to sell to make $1 million? Do those calculations. And actually, there is, if it is a software, it's something that people can download, then you don't have to, again, in this day and age, nobody ships CDs and anything like that. But so they could just go download it, or if it's a course on Udemy or something like that. So you're making money even when you're sleeping. So find out what do people need, and create a product that serves that need, so you will be able to sell it. Okay, so scalability is important. So if you're selling the program for $1, you have to sell 1 million copies to make $1 million. It's $10, and you have to sell 100,000 copies. $100, 10,000 copies, right? Okay, so keep this in mind. Some of you I know are very ambitious. So if you want to make money, and some people have this idea they can make money on real estate or certain job or whatever, that's not the case. Waste management, you know what that company does? That picks up garbage. Okay, that's $1 billion company, more than that. So scalability of operations, and you should have an idea, you should have a solution to something. And if you can package it, you can sell it, you'll be able to make lots of money. So that was the Jinja skill I was giving you. And come to Jinja class if you have any questions or you want to talk about other things. So how do companies select? Selection process could involve test interviews, and sometimes test and interviews are reliable, sometimes they are not. So companies could use a variety of different methods to do that. And once you select the person, then you have to make sure that there are some cross-cultural seminars, workshops to get the person adjusted. And the way the culture works, the society works, it's important to understand that as well. And so these are different adjustment models, different stages of that. And so this is an important, this is an interesting one to look at. It's like, it goes up, like you're happy, you're excited, then the reality hits. And as you learn and grow, you're becoming more and more productive. Compensation, as discussed before, typically companies have to pay more money for somebody to go overseas, and there are expenses involved as well. So companies, the trend is towards hiring local workers. And the compensation package could include these things: salary, benefits, allowances, incentives, taxes. Usually the base salary is higher, then you have benefits, allowances, housing allowance, car allowance, all of these things, education, incentives to keep them there, and taxes, who's paying, is there double taxation, things like that. And you, based on negotiation, you can pick a package that makes more sense. And different, as you can see, different clusters, like so there is Anglo cluster, which is US, UK, Australia, is more interested in individual achievement and less in desire for security. French cluster, less importance on individual achievement and more on security. So again, depending upon which region people are going from, there is different motivations for that. And depending upon which country the person is from. So if you look at the chapter, there are lots of these comparisons and tables, and what is more important to which country and people from which country. And again, as I keep mentioning, it's good to ask, even though you think that people in the US may like a certain thing, but if you talk to them, you might be surprised that they might be looking for something else. And repatriation is the process of bringing the person back into the home country. And there are challenges to that too. The reasons why people return, sometimes the assignment is over, sometimes there are family issues, sometimes the company is restructuring, all kinds of issues. And then there are readjustment problems. When the person comes back, they may realize that they've learned all these amazing and awesome skills, but there is no assignment that does justice to that. So they've learned all these awesome skills, but there is no place to apply. So they may get frustrated, they may leave. So those companies may want to come up with transition strategies, make sure the skills are still relevant and people are put into assignments where those skills would be used. And then these are the training programs, different kinds of programs are there. So different philosophical positions. So ethnocentric is whatever the home country, which is, let's say, US does, is what they're going to do everywhere. Meaning you're saying that whatever works in the US will work everywhere, kind of use that. Polycentric is you're actually changing strategies based on the locations. Regiocentric is it's like a region. So for Southeast Asia, you're going to do a different strategy. For Middle East, it's going to be different strategy. So it's a strategy for a region. And the geocentric is like a global, strategy. What kind of training or what kind of programs you're going to use. Learning, acquiring new skills. And it's important to overcome the biases, ethnocentrism, meaning, you're thinking that whatever head office is doing is the right thing. So sometimes you have to have an open mind and see, what's important for the region. Again, you need to train people to make sure that they understand how things work in different environments. And the training programs could be standardized or could be tailor-made depending upon what the situation is of the company. By the way, this is a very dense chapter, meaning there are lots of things that are covered in this. And somebody from HR might find this really, really interesting and useful because it is going over everything: compensation, training, selection process. So somebody who is in HR probably is enjoying this chapter more than somebody who's in marketing or accounting. Cultural assimilators, you create programs for different scenarios and you train people on that. So this way they'll be better prepared when they come across situations like that. By the way, just a side note, the accidents, the air traffic, the flying, the accidents that would happen to airplanes, they went down quite a bit after they started using simulators. So this way, the pilot was mentally prepared as to what to do when things happen. If you know, on Valentine's Day, Sullivan, the pilot, he landed the plane in Hudson River between New York and New Jersey. So he was a Navy pilot, so he had all these trainings. So that's why he was cool, calm, and collected, was able to land the plane properly. So similarly, if a manager is thrown into simulations, different situations, so he would be much better prepared when he actually encounters, he or she, encounters those situations in real life. It depends, sometimes it could be customized. These could cost a lot of money, but if the company is sending lots of employees overseas, then the cost per employee would be a lot lower. And then you have to create an environment, positive organization behavior. Positive is the study and application of positively oriented human resource strengths and psychological capacities that can be measured. So basically, you are creating a workforce that is helping employees to be more productive and to be able to, feel comfortable experimenting with things and trying on different things. So future trends, localization of expatriates. Also, I think, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's good to do expatriates, impatriates, use local, managers, your third country managers. Look at what, again, going back to the diagram that I showed you, you have to see what is the purpose of the company in going overseas. So that's number one. Second is, now what is the purpose of the person that is going over there? Make sure you're matching those things, then the success would be highly likely. And the last letter is W, as in William, as in White House, as in, what other things are with W? Win. All right, so that is the last letter. So it was the 4 letters. So a quick recap. People are extremely important in making things successful. You can do all kinds of analysis, like strategies going from point A to point B, and the leader is the person who takes you from point A to point B. So you have to make sure you select the proper people, you train them properly, you compensate them properly, and also make sure that you take care of the dependents, that the people are going to go with them, to make sure that the assignment is successful. All right, so thank you for watching this and all the chapter videos, and good luck for the quiz for this as well as the final exam, and I'll see you in future videos. Thank you for watching.